welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salaya Lomakudir. The time is 27 minutes past 9, and we're going to be switching gears to, I think, a very, very important and insightful conversations. We're going to be speaking to a very young, outspoken lady. She refuses to be silent in the face of injustice. Leen Saleh. She's a Palestinian-Syrian activist who's using her voice to speak up for two of the most devastated nations in recent memory. Palestine and Syria, from leading youth programs to advocating for refugees and human rights. She's become a powerful force in international solidarity spaces. And today on News and Views, we'll take a pause from the politics and the punditry to have a raw, honest conversation, not with a politician or an analyst, but with someone who lives the consequences of the world's double standards. What does it mean to grow up stateless, to see your people suffer while the world looks away? What keeps her going, and what does she want the world to finally hear about Palestine and about Syria? Joining us now is Leen Saleh. She's a young lady, an activist, I think, who has a very, very brilliant story to tell, and I think she represents a new wave of young leaders that are emerging out in the Middle East, and very, very important to talk to. Leen, assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Really, really excited to be chatting to you this morning. Looking forward to an insightful conversation, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you, brother? Thanks for having me. First of all, and I'm not sure what time is it now in South Africa.
It's 9:30 in the morning.
Okay, so maybe I think we're 6 hours apart.
Sure. Yeah. I think, we can kickstart the conversation with you just introducing yourself to our audience. I think when I read about you and started seeing, your videos doing the rounds on social media, what really drew me to you was you being both Palestinian and Syrian. I think it will grab anyone's attention considering the state of both those countries, and how they're in the headlines. Just in brief, in short, who's Leen, and the identity that you carry being Palestinian and Syrian, how it has forged you to become the person that you are today and to do the work that you do today.
All right. Thanks so much for having me again. And your question is actually something very important that I've spent years thinking about because it has formed my identity. And of course, I've had encountered so many, let's say, traumas since I was in a young age after I had to leave Syria because of the regime, Al Assad regime. And I would like to share an information that is not known yet. I'm originated from Algeria. I'm actually Algerian, Palestinian, and Syrian. And my family has had to flee Algeria in the 80s, 50s, or like between 30s and 40s. And from Algeria, they moved to Palestine. From Palestine, again to Syria. And from Syria, I left to Malaysia and God knows where else. So having all this migration trip has actually clicked only when I moved to Malaysia, when I wanted to start my university, because I was so confused about how should I introduce myself to others. Am I Syrian? Am I Palestinian? Should I go back to my roots in Algeria because we still have families there? It was a huge, let's say, I was disconnected from reality for a while because we've been through a lot and we didn't plan to come to Malaysia as a family. So thinking about that actually, and growing up with that had taught me so much. At first, I was thinking of something like all this frustration, all this anger should turn into actions. And where should my actions be going to? Which direction should I be focusing on? And I was thinking what's in common between all this? It's more than a century. My grandparents have been moving from one country to another. It was because of colonization. It was because of occupation. So I immediately had this idea in mind, oh my God, I've been going through all these hardships because of injustice that is happening in the world. I won't be focusing on only one story, on one country, on one victims, on one regime. It's all connected to me and it all made sense when I was almost 22, I guess. I was just randomly staying in a bus station, and I had no bank account at that moment, and I said I didn't have enough cash, and I was like, what should I be doing now? What am I doing now? I need to go back home. What's happening to me? I feel like I'm stuck. And the train station, the bus station was to me like a kind of the instability that I'm living, and that everything is temporary. Everything I'm going through, it's all unstable. Instability was the headline for my life for so long, and people like me. So I remember writing a long notes and talking to my grandparents and to everyone in my family and asking them about like more about our history and everything we've been through. And I was like, you know what? The reason I'm stuck in this bus station, the reason I don't have a bank account at this moment is because of Balfour Declaration. It's because of Sykes-Picot. I know it doesn't make sense, but to me it was total, like it was everything for me at that moment as a young girl, uh, almost graduating from uni bachelor degree. So going through that has shaped my personality in many ways that I can't even think about at this moment. So yeah, going back to the interview, as a Palestinian Syrian, because I mean my father, my grandfather, and me myself, we were born in this area of the world, the Levant countries. um, Being from these countries is not something as easy as people might think. We came from a very nice countries. The culture is amazing. Everything that we've been taught is good. But what we really suffer from is not only injustice. You are born to life with the circumstances that is forcing upon you. You're born into life with so many injustice and so many with a situation that you're forced to live. For example, like when I was born in Syria, in Damascus, specifically in Yarmouk camp, I was registered as a refugee. So even the moment before I was born, I was identified in this word as a refugee, which would actually um, affect all aspects of my life unless I would have a different citizenship by time, which I don't have, and I'm not actually planning to have at any time soon, because I believe Palestine would be free within my lifetime, and hopefully I would belong to a country, and I would be respected, and I would be fight building my own country, which I'm fighting for its freedom right now. So
mm,
yeah.
mm.
uh,
I wanted, sorry to jump in there. I wanted to focus on that aspect that, from the moment that you were born, you were essentially stateless, just psychologically, emotionally, because I think everyone, um attaches themselves to where they're born and who they are because of the roots that you have and the connections that you have and your family being there for generations over generations. um the impact that had on you growing up stateless, and being classified as a refugee before you even came into this earth, has it had any kind of impact on you? Has it shaped how you've seen the world, or you've always considered yourself Palestinian, no matter what the documents say about you?
I've always considered myself a Palestinian Syrian. I can't also disconnect from my Syrian roots. My mother is
Mm,
Syrian as well. And the way as you said, like what shaped my identity was connecting to my people's struggle, to my grandfather's history and their journey moving from Palestine to Syria, walking barefoot. To me, that was everything. Disconnecting from my history, meaning losing a part of myself or losing myself. So, having Palestine living within my heart, it means not only having a nation or having a country or raising a flag, it's about the identity and the meaning you give to your life. For example, the way you think, your perspective to life, what matters to you, the things that gives you meaning, fighting, resisting, being a resilient person, adapting to new environments, adapting to situationships and like hardships you go through. That's 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 being a Palestinian to me. It means
mm,
that you're always fighting and calling for fighting injustice and calling for justice and freedom, not only for Palestine, but for all injustice in the world. I do believe that there would be no global justice if Palestinians are not free. Because what's happening now in Gaza is actually like it's an demonstration or an example to what the brutal system, international system, can cause to any human in the world, and what we can do to it. So to me, being a Palestinian is not only a document or a paper or a passport that I would walk around and hold. It's a matter of mentality. It's a matter of identity.
Very, very important to note. Being a Palestinian-Syrian, I think in the last few years, we saw these two countries grabbing the headlines of the world, I think, in a way that we've never seen it before. I want us to start with Syria. I think it was on the 8th of December last year, when the Assad regime was overthrown. As someone with deep Syrian roots, what was your reaction and of those around you? Was it relief? Was it concern? Or maybe a mix of both?
At first, it was relief more than anything else, because I mean, imagine what millions of Syrians have been displaced, millions were killed. So the moment that we heard the news that Syria is free of Al-Assad regime, it was a huge relief. I was like just crying and happily walking around. I was in Malaysia, in Kuantan that time, and I was just telling people like, Syria is free. Do you know what was happening to Syria? Do you know what does it mean for Syria to be free? It was a huge news for everyone. Like when you're speaking about having some concern, it maybe we're having these concerns in the recent days because of what the foreign policies of the Syrian government at the moment. But like I prefer to wait and to see what's going to happen in the few days to come, a few months to come, because I believe Syria and Palestine, we share the same struggle, and we share the same history. We're only divided by the borders, but we are people who belong to the same culture. And I would like to think of myself and my family and many other Palestinian Syrians as people of one land. And all the politics that we're fighting over now, it go back to one root, which is colonization and occupation and just injustice that we should focus on and fight for all together. And I believe as Bashar al-Assad regime and other regimes around the region, for other countries around Palestine, all these regimes were meant to sustain the injustice and to support Israel, whether directly or indirectly. So I believe what we should be fighting for is how should our governments be supporting Palestine and how we shouldn't lose our compass. So instead of focusing on Palestinian and Syrian people having these discussions all together, we should be finding more common ground that we all share and we believe in.
Leen, I want us to take a quick break, but then when we come back, I want to, focus on the Palestinian aspect of who you are, because I think both your identities are quite intriguing, and it's very refreshing to hear the perspectives that you have on both. But I want us to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation, maybe even just look at Syria and post-Assad and what it has kind of morphed into, your thoughts on that, and then we'll focus on Palestine and what we're seeing in that part of the world, and most importantly, what do you make of how the world has reacted to it?
Sure.
There you go.
This is Salam Media.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Dad, these Frymax chips are so tasty.
Wow, that really takes me back. My dad bought me a Frymax chips every day after school. They were my favorite when I was your age as well. Quality is at the very heart of what we do, and that's why we ensure that every Frymax packet is filled with the beautiful goodness and flavor-packed taste that you've come to expect from us since 1982. Frymax, from generation to generation.
Yasin Badat Financial Advisory. Are your financial goals feeling out of reach? Yasin Badat Financial Advisory is here to turn your aspirations into achievements. Our dedicated team, armed with a history of success, is ready to guide you through the complex nature of financial and investment planning. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, our personalized solutions cater to your unique goals and risk appetite. Trust in our commitment to transparency, integrity, and excellence. Ready to unlock a world of financial freedom? Partner with us today. Call Yasin Badat Financial Advisory at +27 33 346 2071 or visit www.yasinbadat.com. Yasin Badat Financial Advisory, guiding you to financial success.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views of myself, Salai Lomakwidiri, and this morning we're bringing you a very deeply personal and powerful perspective, one that I think bridges two of the most devastated regions in our modern world, Palestine and Syria. Our guest is Leen Saleh. She's a Palestinian-Syrian youth leader and advocate who has been at the forefront of campaigns for refugee rights, for justice for Palestinians, and just the dignity of displaced people everywhere. We're having a conversation with her about carrying two identities that I mentioned are of the most devastated parts of modern world. And it's very, very insightful hearing how she connects with both those identities and the immense work that she has to do, to make sure that all of the atrocities that are happening in both countries are recognized, and just seeing those two countries morph and change as she also grows into herself. It's very, very insightful and very I think important to have these kinds of conversation. Leen, thank you so much for staying with us. Really appreciate you giving us your time. Before we went to that short break, I wanted to chat briefly about how, or maybe what you make of post-Assad Syria. I think the headlines were quite big. I think in December 2024, the beginning of December, Assad's regime falling, we saw a rise in a new government, but Syria has continued to be in the headlines. There's been a lot of violence still taking place in Syria. We saw the involvement of Israel also in the southern borders of Syria. Seeing that, and in contrast to what you have hoped Syria to look like post-Assad, what is your assessment? What do you make of it?
Can you please repeat the question? The line was not really so clear at the end.
I just wanted to quickly find out just your quick assessment on post-Assad Syria at this moment. We've seen headlines of the continued violence, especially in the southern border. We've seen the involvement of Israel itself, a country that is devastating Gaza, another part of you, another element of who you are, making its presence felt in the southern borders of Syria, and engaging essentially in another war, another front in Syria after what was supposed to be a post-Assad era, which a lot of Syrians, looked at with a lot of hope. What do you make of the current state of affairs in Syria at the moment?
Unfortunately, it's a hard truth, but people don't want to believe it. But Israel want to expand, and Israel is aiming to launch and start a war against Syria and against more than Syria if it had the chance to, if the regimes are not supporting Israel's interests. So I believe what's happening in Syria, it's eventually something that we were all knowing it's going to happen, but we were turning a blind eye to it. We were not thinking it might happen sooner or later. That's why the debate and the conversation of normalization and having some ties with Israel has been going more and more, which I strongly disagree with, because I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It's only going to enable more the injustice more for Syrians and Palestinians. And as you said, like when the main conversation was like being both Palestinian and Syrian and having Israel attacking both countries. Another matter of fact, I have family and I have also roots in Lebanon from my mother's side. So when Lebanon was attacked, we were always like worried, contacting them here and there. So as I mentioned to you earlier, being from that land is something that will shape your lifestyle, will shape your mentality and everything. So we're used to it, but it's not something that we should be living with. We learn how to survive it. We learn how to live with it. We learn some coping mechanism here and there, but it's seriously it creates a burden on you, and it makes it so hard. That's why I'm always like on a process of learning in new ways and new techniques on how I can be a voice of refugees. How can I be a voice of people who are oppressed? I am from that land, but I know so many people who are having like harder time than me. So doing that and always learning and reading more, it's the key for all of this. So going back to your question about Syria and all the Israelis' intervention with Syria, it's gonna be more by time, by days, hopefully not. But I mean, going back to Israeli policies and Israel interests, Israel is not aiming for Palestine only. Israel has been trying to control all Palestinians, but Palestine has been resisting Israel for over 70 years now. It's now going to be aiming for Lebanon and Syria, and later would be Jordan and Egypt. As if you can go back to the Israelis' map based on their beliefs, religious beliefs, and also based on their political interests. So I believe Syrians should be getting ready for this fight. If not starting the fight with Israel, at least we should be getting ready for the fight with Israel and setting some limits with Israel, because otherwise the land of Syria would be, how to say that in English? I haven't been talking much about Syria recently. Yeah, therefore the terms I'm trying to recall now, it's blurry. Yeah, therefore going back to the agreements that were between Syria and Israel, the occupation state back in 1974, is the least that we should be doing now. Not giving Israel more, and not actually hoping that we would have peace when Israel is clearly aiming for more lands in Syria.
Let's talk about the psyche of young people in both countries. People your age, who were born either in Syria or in Palestine, or were born outside of those countries. Just their mental state at the moment, looking at everything that's happening in both countries. How are they receiving the news? How are they understanding their status quo right now, as people that might not have grown under any peace of some sort in their countries, growing up stateless, many growing up with so much devastation and war around them? How are they feeling? How are they interpreting and understanding the world around them?
You're just reminding me of the many conversations we've been having with my friends for years. We always call our groups like we're trauma bonding, basically, because it's the truth. Especially here in Malaysia, you meet so many refugees from different backgrounds: Syrians, Palestinians, Iraqis, and others. Um, so I'm not gonna lie, there's so many of us who lost hope eventually, and they're looking for a better future in other countries where they would have at least a stable life or some kind of sustainability in whatever they do. Because when you're a refugee, whatever you do or whatever you give back to the country you're living in, you're not receiving anything in return. Um, yes, so that's the kind of struggle. And as I told you, and I always say, the life of the young people in our countries, the main title of our life is instability. We're always thinking about our next step. We're thinking about what should we be doing now? What if we're going? What if we should go back to our countries? Should we like live the life that our families are having there? We're having this kind of guilt, but at the same time, we're always trying to give back from where we are. So it's a matter of survival, and it's a matter of perspective. Always, it's a matter of perspective. Um, we, and like if someone is, if any refugee is listening to this at the moment, we should be always thinking of new ways and be creative on how we should support ourselves, our families, and our homeland. Because khalas, we're born to that countries. You cannot disconnect from this reality. You just can't. And even if you want, something will bring you back. So better than just sitting there and crying over whatever happened to you, try to make it happen and do something positive. Um, do some initiatives, teach others, spread knowledge. You yourself, you should learn more, because coming from Palestine, from Syria, you would be, you would learn so much by the time, and if not, you're gonna be brainwashed. So instead of just going with the flow, you should have a mind of your own. So knowledge is the key. And as I mentioned earlier, going back to the main root of all our problems, which is the colonization and occupation, would give us a very clear and a clear path, and something that we all know that this is what we're fighting for, and this is who we're fighting. And we're fighting for our freedom. We're fighting for our have a to have justice for our communities. So having this, it's a matter of, it's ongoing. It will never end. It's gonna be always ongoing. And as a matter of example, now what's happening in Syria after the regime, Assad regime has fallen. Um, for if you believe in the revolution, and the revolution have won, but now we're not done yet. There's a new objective. A new objective. There's a new things that we can give back to Syria. As a matter of fact, it's just the corruption. We don't want the corruption to control Syria again. Just an example. And number two is that we should be reconstruction the Syrian cities, helping all the refugees, having many initiatives related to education and to health. So being from that country is meaning you're an ongoing process of learning and giving back, which is something that can be hard. It is hard, but by the time you learn how to live with it, it's gonna be you. It's gonna be a part of your identity. And whenever you disconnect from it, you're really gonna lose some sense of reality, because we can't disconnect. As you mentioned, like the news, the headlines, everything will remind you of what's going on. And that's why I always relate boycotting and all the BDS movement actions and initiatives as something very initial, because it shows us an example of how being in action 24/7 non-stop is what gives you a meaning. When people think that boycotting is not enough, I always tell them that non-boycott is actually an action as well. So you're choosing an action instead of doing the other. So being in action all the time, being in the movement, it what gives the life a meaning, I believe, to youth from our countries. And that's why we've seen so many Syrians in the European Union and in the US telling their families' stories, or telling their own stories, surviving from the prison. And of course, so many Palestinians who are sharing their real testimonies from Gaza right now, the one who made it outside, and the prisoners of in the West Bank. So being in the action 24/7, thinking about it in your daily life, doing something, despite how small you think it is, it's the only thing that will make you truly survive, because you can never forget or disconnect. And so many of us, we don't want this disconnection, honestly.
Most definitely. And when you speak about boycotts, I can tell you, as a South African, it's something that we all know too well, and we know that it is an action that can have so much impact. Just one last question before I let you go, Leen. Just your assessment, your perspective as a young Palestinian looking at this genocide, looking at how the world has reacted to it since October the 7th. I think we are approaching, I don't know how many days of this continued devastation from, I guess, the people of Gaza. How do you assess it? How do you assess the reality that is presented to us at this moment, and how the world, as I mentioned, has reacted to it, and the inaction, most importantly, of many that are in the West that continue to sit and do nothing as we watch children, women, and men dying in their numbers with hopes to be completely erased from their lands by the Israeli pariah state?
Yeah, so as you mentioned previously, as an activist, we were always like thinking of how we should change the narrative towards Palestine, because we know that a huge part of our fight with Israel is about information and truth and lies, because the whole Israel and occupation entity is based on lies and propaganda. They claim the history, it's theirs. They claim Palestine is theirs, and therefore Palestinians do not belong to their land. But now it's no longer a war of lies. It's no longer a war of truth, because the truth is streamed on our screens, 4K HD. We see people dying out of famine. We see people killed. No one can deny this. So to me, it's not a matter. It's not a war of truth and lies anymore. It's all about actions. We thought that for one moment that telling the people the true story of Palestine and convincing them that we have the history is with us would actually make them support us. But what's been happening in Gaza for 2 years, it's very painful that international community and so many governments and even people themselves, they know the truth, but they're still doing nothing. So I think in this moment, what matters the most is sustained actions, because it's time for actions, nothing more and nothing less. So as I mentioned earlier, if we don't see the results happening immediately, if we think that nothing we do is enough, we should remember that silence is actually enabling injustice. Therefore, speaking and mobilizing and always talking and doing something is creating waves internationally, and we're trying to do and give back more, which will eventually create more pressure, and this pressure will change your government, the parliament, the international community stand for Palestine. And the past 2 years, unfortunately, we're saying that. We all know Piers Morgan, how he used to ask this question: do you condemn Hamas or blah blah blah? But now he's like, condemn Israel. Okay, the shift took him so long. I don't know why his opinion was shifted. Like, he can't deny the truth anymore. And the question we keep asking ourselves as Palestinians is, how much more do people want to see to start doing actions? The change is happening. The change is slow compared to what's happening in Palestine, the genocide that is happening. It's crazy, it's insane. But the change is there, and that's what we should be focusing on at this moment. That no matter what protest we do, any media post, any message we try to deliver is something that is important. And for example, the flotilla mission and the campaigns that the students in the US have started, all these kind of like separate actions are still connected in many different ways. So I believe we as normal people, we should be doing that, because if injustice is sustained by silence, and if silence is only broken by pressure, then we all can create the pressure. Each one of us is a part of this. That's my message, and I know like it feels so hard, and it's normal to feel hopeless at some moment. But if we just recall a kid in Gaza who is dying and a mother who's losing her family, then everything become meaningless, and we would we would believe that the smallest action we do does really is actually it matters the most to them, because now what's happening in Gaza raises a huge question for each of us individually. Are you ready to be a part of this genocide, or do you want to be a part of the the movement and the pressure that is meant to take this injustice from Palestinians? So you should ask yourself which side you want to be, because being silent or being neutral now is an action itself. Therefore, we should only choose we're with Israel, or we're against Israel, and that's it. We're with Palestinians or we're against Palestinians. Nothing else really matters at this moment. The action should be happening 24/7, no matter how small is the action. Because if you're not doing this for Palestinians, at least do this for your own self, for your own sanity. Because imagine by buying like a boycotted item, you're supporting Israel indirectly or directly. You should be really ashamed from yourself. As I mentioned to many people who doesn't believe in boycott, and I'm like, if you're not doing this, if you don't believe Palestine would be free anytime soon, or if you think boycott is useless, how about you think out of self-love? If you really love yourself, and if you're expecting much out of yourself, do you want to be a part? Do you want to kill an innocent human being? Do you want to be a part of this? And I hope that this question will maybe make them think more, and make them go deeper and like search more about how important it is to do the smallest action, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Most definitely. And as you're speaking about action and inaction, I'm reminded of a quote from one of our freedom fighters, Reverend Desmond Tutu, who was very, very, very integral when it comes to South Africa defeating the apartheid system here. And he was also very passionate about Palestine. And he said, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, then you've chosen the side of the oppressor. And I think that kind of encapsulates what you and I have been talking about. Leen, thank you so much for joining us. We've come to the end of our discussion. I can tell you, as a South African, it's always refreshing speaking to young Palestinians like yourself, young Palestinian-Syrian like yourself, because you don't want to divorce yourself from any of your identities. But it's always refreshing. It's always important to hear your perspectives, because so often than not, we speak on you guys' behalf instead of engaging with you. People are so passionate about Palestine, but the biggest mistake that we tend to make is now be the mouthpiece of Palestinians instead of giving them the platform to talk and to engage and to tell us how they want us to help them. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you so much for chatting to us. Really, really appreciate it. And from South Africa, I can tell you, we are screaming from the river to the sea, and we know and understand, as Nelson Mandela said, our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the people of Palestine. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
There you go. That was Leen Saleh coming to us from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And yeah, a refreshing conversation, a conversation that is needed, especially during this very, very critical time. And I think the mistake that we make, and I think we should refrain from it, we should talk to Palestinians more. We should refrain from talking about them without talking to them. And the perspective of young Palestinian-Syrians like Leen, for me, as a young Black South African myself, will always be so refreshing, because it puts things into perspective. It makes you understand a bit more what you need to do and what role you can play in this live stream genocide. Essentially, I think we've said it so many times that this is a genocide. We understand it to be. Human rights organizations and governments have classified it to be a genocide, and it's up to us now, especially young people, to use the mechanisms that we have, to use social media, to use all of the tools at our disposal to make sure that we amplify the voices of people like Leen. Because as she said, we do believe that Palestine will be free in our lifetime. We've come to the end of today's show. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's been another incredible, insightful, and educational news and views. I'll be back with you again for the Wednesday edition of the show, but we're going to leave it here for now.
Shap shap.